As we learn about assistive technology, it's important that we listen to individuals who use it on a daily basis. The following interview is with Johnny Kelly, who will share some of his successes and challenges and how he became a self-determined person living a fulfilled life. Johnny, can you start by telling us a little about yourself?
My name is Johnny Kelly. I currently live in Midlothian with my wife of 4 years. I'm an IT guy. I have 2 degrees in information technology. I consider myself a bit of a computer expert. Being a technologically minded person, in recent years I've become passionate about the outdoors, roughing it, being off the grid. My wife tells me I'm becoming a conundrum in my old age. Add to that my love of weightlifting, and you have a geek/bushman/jock. It's a wonder my head just doesn't go boom. If my wife would let me, I'd probably live at the gym. I simply love putting everything I have into the weights. I think those are the times I feel the most like a man. I also enjoy playing video games. Now I don't mean games like Angry Birds or Farmville. Although Angry Birds is hilarious, I'm talking about games like Modern Warfare and Battlefield. Games where I play online against other people, where I sneak around in my camouflage and pop people in the head without them even knowing where I am, and sending a nice little message saying that they just got sniped by a guy in a wheelchair with a picture of me attached. Now that's fun right there.
Tell us how you use technology in your daily life.
I use a great deal of technology every day. From the wheelchair I'm sitting in, that facilitates my mobility. The Dynavox, which allows me to communicate with others. It also performs as a fully functioning computer, allowing me to surf the web, check email, listen to music, and watch videos. I also use a smartphone for the usual purposes: phone calls, text messages, email, web surfing, and taking pictures. Finally, I have a desktop computer and several laptops that aid me in repairing other computers.
When did you begin using an augmentative communication device?
I began to have access to augmentative communication in high school. My school had a Dynavox that I could use while I was in class. Unfortunately, I didn't take advantage of that opportunity. I just let the device sit in the library. I wasn't the most passionate teenager. I grew up in a household that contained only hate and selfishness. My father died a year after I was born, and that was actually a blessing. He was an evil man who physically abused my siblings. My brother sexually abused me from as far back as I can remember until I was 16. My mother was fully aware of it. Ironically, I have to say she is one of those people who shouldn't have had children. She was a classic case of a parent caring more for money that accompanies the child rather than the child himself. Growing up in that sort of household obviously didn't nurture any kind of self-esteem or self-confidence. Therefore, in my opinion, my thoughts were not important enough to share. So why try? I regret every day that I didn't make the effort to use the device to communicate. Who knows the friends I would have made, the experiences I would have had. Because I didn't use it, the school stopped policing it. So for the next 3 years, I had no way of communication besides writing notes, obviously not the most effective method of communicating. Those 3 years were extremely important to me, and very, very memorable. I often wonder what it would have been like if I had a communication device during those years. The friendships that I made would have undoubtedly grown deeper. I might have been able to tell several young ladies how I felt about them.
Can you tell us about Any other barriers you faced when you first started using your AAC device, and what continues to be a barrier for you?
I guess there were two main barriers that hindered me. The first was simply myself. I was not the nicest person back then. I had no real desire to communicate or meet new friends. My attitude was due to the second barrier. My rough childhood caused me to have no self-confidence in which to consider my thoughts worth sharing. I basically didn't think what I had to say mattered. It took me a long time to figure out I was wrong. Currently, the major barrier I face in communication is that my form of communication is considered very abnormal. To most people, our form of communication is tough to deal with. In my opinion, it's a matter of patience. Most uninformed people just don't have the patience to converse with me.
Johnny, were there any particular people in your life that influenced you, and why?
I've actually had a lot of people who have influenced me. I guess the first person would have to be a teacher who was with me throughout my time in grammar school. At the time, I didn't like the woman at all. She drove me nuts, always making me do my very best. The bare minimum was never enough in her opinion. I'm now grateful for her always encouraging me to do my best. The next person would have to be a man we called Buddha. If the word Buddha was in the dictionary, this guy's picture would undoubtedly be there. He actually introduced me to the Department of Rehabilitative Services. They suggested that I go to the Roosevelt Institute for Rehabilitation. My time there made me who I am today. My experiences there is a whole other video. Sometimes I wonder if Buddha even realizes how he impacted my life. Regardless, I'm grateful. There were numerous people at Roosevelt Institute that made me work longer and harder than I ever thought possible. They found nothing abnormal about me. So they saw no reason for me not to go until I dropped. A former pastor had a great influence on me. He is a truly brilliant man. And I don't think I have ever met a more down-to-earth person in my life. He taught me so much about so many things. He was the first true father figure I've had. The last woman I dated before meeting my wife made her impact on my life. She proved to me that I don't have to just settle for any woman. That I could have the kind of woman I wanted. She was quite a bit older than me, so she showed me how a woman should love a man. Kind of important to know. Having that newfound confidence, when I met my wife, I told her up front that I wasn't looking for just another friend. I told her that I could and would love her more than any other man on the planet. And the rest is history. Of course, my wife has had the greatest influence on my life. Her love for me, her confidence in me, is truly incredible. She is my best friend and my biggest fan.
What can teachers, therapists, and others do to help support students who need assistive technology to find what works for them and to motivate them to use it?
Well, the problem I faced was a lack of confidence, as I've mentioned. And I think confidence is the absolute root of the problem. If that student can't find confidence in himself, by whatever means, you will have to take the battery out of their device to get them to shut up. But beyond that, I guess one simple answer would be to spend time with that student, one-on-one. That's the simple answer. But it's not so simple to implement, especially for teachers and therapists. I guess that's where the family comes in. The family has to challenge the student, especially the parents. There has to be a heartfelt belief that that student's life is crucial to human history. Now that's a very big thought. But when you look at that student with that thought in mind, it forces you to remove the handicapped glasses. It forces you to see that student as a very small, but nonetheless important, part of history. The other suggestion on how to help motivate these kids is, well, using me or someone like me. And I'll tell you why. Years ago, I was introduced to a father with cerebral palsy who had a son with cerebral palsy. The son had a communication device, a Dynavox. The problem was not unusual. The 7-year-old boy wouldn't use the device. His father and I wanted to see how he would react to someone else using the Dynavox, namely me. So I met Christian, and it was an instant success. The boy wouldn't shut up. He would just babble on about anything. The absolute cutest little boy in the world. We'd go to Walmart, and I would make him engage me as we shopped. It was like having a little mini-me rolling behind me. My point is, seeing someone on the other side of this apparent chasm of communication can be a big motivation. And I don't know if there are many like me out there. Someone with my technical skills. Someone that is as active as I am. Someone with my perspective on disability issues. And someone with my overwhelming passion to positively impact the world. I think I'm somewhat of a rarity. And if I can be used to help others like me or unlike me, I'll die proud.
Do you have any other messages you'd like to send to beginning AAC users to help them to find their voices?
I would have to tell them that their opinions, their thoughts, their voices are just as important to the world as anyone else's. I would tell them that their voice is still their voice, whether or not it comes from a computer. I would tell them to speak when they want to speak. Say exactly what they want to say. Demand to be heard. And when they don't want to talk, that's their choice.